A special thank you to each of our subscribers who make this channel possible. Here's today's story. In a dramatic display of worldwide concern, protesters flooded the streets of Rio de Janeiro as G20 leaders convened for critical discussions on pressing global issues. The summit, held amidst rising tensions in Gaza and Lebanon, saw demonstrators calling for immediate action to pressure Israel to cease its military actions in these regions. The backdrop of the G20, which included leaders from major global powers, highlighted the stark divisions among nations while also showcasing some collaborative successes. The summit kicked off with high expectations that it would revitalize stalled UN climate negotiations currently taking place in Azerbaijan. However, the final declaration from the G20 leaders fell short of concrete commitments, merely acknowledging the urgent need to increase climate finance from billions to trillions. Notably absent was clarity on who would shoulder the responsibility for these funds, leading critics like Mick Sheldrick, co-founder of the Global Citizen Campaign Group, to express disappointment. "They haven't stepped up to the challenge," he remarked, emphasizing the need for decisive action. Amidst the climate discussions, the ongoing war in Ukraine loomed large over the summit. Just a day prior, the United States had granted Ukraine the green light to use long-range missiles supplied by American forces to strike Russian territory, prompting a stern warning from Russia of potential retaliation. Chinese President Xi Jinping, alongside Brazil, advocated for peace talks between Kyiv and Moscow, urging G20 leaders to take steps to cool the conflict. In a carefully worded final statement, G20 leaders acknowledged and welcomed all relevant and constructive initiatives aimed at achieving a comprehensive and just peace in Ukraine. However, they refrained from explicitly condemning Russian aggression, instead reiterating their opposition to the use of force for territorial acquisition. The G20 summit also addressed the escalating violence in Gaza and Lebanon, with leaders calling for comprehensive ceasefires in both regions. The proposed ceasefire in Gaza is linked to a US-backed UN resolution that demands Hamas release all hostages in exchange for a permanent ceasefire. Similarly, the leaders called for a ceasefire in Lebanon that would allow citizens to safely return to their homes along the Blue Line, the demarcation separating Lebanese and Israeli forces. In a notable achievement for Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, the G20 endorsed the idea of collaborating to ensure that ultra-high net worth individuals are effectively taxed. This initiative marks a significant step towards addressing global tax inequalities, although it emphasized the need for respect for tax sovereignty and the establishment of anti-avoidance mechanisms. Economist Gabriel Zuckman, who contributed to a report on this issue, hailed the decision as historic. President Lula's commitment to combating hunger was also a focal point of the summit. He launched a global alliance against hunger, successfully securing the support of 82 countries at the outset of the meeting. The initiative aims to unify international efforts to finance the fight against hunger, with a goal of reaching 500 million people by the end of the decade. Lula, who has personal experience with poverty, described hunger as a preventable scourge that shames humanity. As the summit progressed, the protests outside served as a stark reminder of the urgent global issues at hand. Demonstrators voiced their frustrations over the lack of decisive action on humanitarian crises, echoing calls for accountability from world leaders. The G20 summit, while showcasing some collaborative efforts, ultimately reflected the complexities and challenges of global governance in addressing pressing issues like climate change, conflict, and inequality. The world watches closely as these leaders navigate the intricacies of diplomacy and the demands of their constituents. In conclusion, the G20 summit in Brazil has underscored the need for urgent and coordinated action on multiple fronts, from climate finance to humanitarian crises. As world leaders depart Rio de Janeiro, the question remains: will they heed the calls for change, or will the protest continue to resonate in the streets as a reminder of their responsibilities? That's all for this story. We upload videos every day covering many different subjects, so hit that subscribe button to stay informed. Thanks for watching.